How Electronic Arts handled Star Wars Battlefront 2 easily is their biggest mistake, because it brought together thousands, if not millions of angry gamers that feel video games are turning into slot machines. Now, Star Wars Battlefront 2 wasn't just a debacle because of how the game handled its loot boxes and microtransactions. It became much bigger because of the consistent excuses Electronic Arts gave. The initial worries that Battlefront 2 had problems with being pay to win came during the beta, in which a lot of angry gamers saw what EA was trying to do and were worried with how the game would turn out. But EA responded to those initial worries saying that that was just the beta, and they were listening to all feedback and concerns to make a better game. EA Motive Director Chris Matthews also commented on fans' concerns, saying right now, there have been games that exploit players and there have been games that have done it in better ways. DICE has taken great care to make sure that star cards and the way they work give you more options in battle. Terms like pay to win and stuff like that are hard to dodge, but the guys are doing a really incredible job of trying to balance that system. I don't really need to remind everyone with what happened in the days leading up to launch, but EA certainly did turn the experience into a whole different nightmare. I often read comments from many EA supporters who claim the game's never been pay to win, and I agree it hasn't, because before the official launch, EA was forced to make changes, which ended up breaking the progression system. To anyone who thinks EA is in the right, I have to remind you, if gamers never voiced their anger during the beta stage or before launch, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a nightmare. Let's also not forget the infamous Reddit response to a fan's concern, in which EA explained that the intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment, which backfired on them with about 670,000 plus downvotes, and really showed everyone that EA clearly didn't see what was wrong with the game. Following that, Disney reportedly voiced their frustrations with Electronic Arts about the situation, and then microtransactions were temporarily offline. Since then, we've heard Electronic Arts executives give excuses for why Battlefront 2 was what it was, including EA CFO Blake Jorgensen blaming Star Wars canon for why they didn't just go cosmetic. Although that little excuse was caught as a lie at launch, when in the game's files it was found that there were hidden cosmetic items, and obviously that lie is much more apparent now with the changes that were announced for Battlefront 2 recently, which makes the microtransactions cosmetic only. But now another EA executive has opened up a bit, claiming that they never intended to create a slot machine in Battlefront 2. Patrick Soderlund, Electronic Arts' executive vice president in charge of worldwide studios, spoke to The Guardian recently, and some of the highlights included are: first, he discusses what sounds like their mission with making games are, saying, if you're working on a large AAA game with a lot of money at stake, you have to always balance how much risk you're willing to take on the concept and execution versus staying in a familiar zone. My job is to challenge our teams, dare them to be innovative, to come up with viable, smart ideas. That's the challenge. How do you balance innovation versus falling back to old habits? We must constantly retrain our brains to think forward. If we don't do it, someone else is going to do it. Although I will say, EA has a quality issue with many of their big AAA games, including Star Wars, and I honestly haven't seen innovation from them in years. I haven't really had a reason to play a game made by them because for the most part, it's always multiplayer, microtransaction driven experiences nowadays. But that's just my opinion. He then discusses the Battlefront 2 debacle and says the following: I think as with any creative form where you run a large team such as in games or film, you have to realize that not everything you do will be successful. Every developer on the planet can attest to that. When things don't go as you thought they would, you have to be very humble towards what happened, take an honest approach with yourself and with the result, and try to do better next time. This was an example of change that didn't work. There's no getting away from the fact that we made some decisions that I think in hindsight we shouldn't have made. Neither the developer nor EA intended to create a slot machine or take money from people, though that was the perception. See, my biggest issue with Electronic Arts is I don't believe them for a second. It was only a few months ago a few patents were discovered in which it looked like they were trying to manipulate players into buying microtransactions in future games. Soderlund's comments certainly sound like EA's trying to downplay or circle around their mistake. I wish they would just fucking own what they did, but that'll never happen. This whole slot machine model, which does originate from the Ultimate Team feature, feature in some of their other sports games is something EA has been trying to implement. We saw that in both Need for Speed Payback and Battlefront 2 at the end of last year, which were the biggest problems in each game. You cannot sit here and tell me these dumb slot machines, and they are dumb slot machines, make the games better, because in both those cases, it ruined the experience for many players and contributed to the low review scores that they both received. This feature is all about money and just that. It really seems Electronic Arts is acting dumb about what happened, but I think it's clear what they were trying to do. In March of 2017, EA CFO Blake Jorgensen stated that they wanted the Ultimate Team model present in their sports games, FIFA and Madden, to be implemented in other franchises. Specifically, he said, like Battlefield or Battlefront, our Star Wars game, which are very similar in the depth of play, we can possibly add a similar mechanic to that. We spend a lot of time thinking about it, not for tomorrow, but over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more of that in our portfolio. So now, going back to Soderlund's comments, I think we have to understand that his viewpoint is that there's nothing wrong with their Ultimate Team model, when in reality many gamers like myself hate it, and see it as a growing problem. Look, Electronic Arts wanted Star Wars Battlefront 2 and probably Anthem and Battlefield 5 to feature a similar mechanic, but gamers clearly are not okay with that. I still don't understand why Madden and FIFA are acceptable, but I honestly believe that those games feature a much more casual audience compared to Star Wars and Battlefield. At the end of the day, EA was trying to make Battlefront 2 a slot machine for sure, but they just never expected the outrage they would receive. FIFA reportedly brings in about $800 million yearly, so of course EA wanted their other games to try a similar model, but it didn't work and has raised questions about monetization in gaming. In my last video, I discussed the anti-loot box bills being defeated in Hawaii, and I feel I ended that video with the wrong message. What I should have said is, don't ever stop calling out BS when you see it, because slowly over time, change can happen. We've seen that with Battlefront 2, and we've also seen that recently with Middle-earth Shadow of War, which removed loot boxes, although that was obviously a PR stunt, which clearly is Warner Brothers trying to draw interest into a game that probably is dead at this point. But the point is, don't stop fighting, because keeping this conversation alive is key, and everyone needs to understand that Electronic Arts has a long track record of anti-consumer decisions, which is why Battlefront 2 is not a one-time thing. It will not be the last time EA does something controversial. Patrick Soderlund can claim the intent was never to create a slot machine, but I don't believe that for a second. Anyway, what do you guys make of these comments? Do you believe them? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value. Also consider subscribing for more videos like this, turn notifications on so you don't miss out on any videos, and I'll see you later.